I was good, y'all, man. It's AD. Welcome to the channel. If you're new on my channel, I pretty much just break shit down in a way that you probably never heard it before, right? I teach people things. So the title is basically, I don't have the muscle memory of fapping, of gooning, whatever you want to call it, right? I started NOFAP when I was 14, like back in 2020 of June. Now I'm 20 years old, 2026, right? So that's a little over 2,000 days. And basically in this video, I'm just going to be sharing some advice on how I exactly deleted the muscle memory of gooning or fapping, right? All right, so I got the handy whiteboard right here. So I'm going to go over this side first because this is just like kind of the surface level concepts I can break down easily. And if you're really serious about this, if you really want to like delete the muscle memory, then I'm going to explain this after this part. So I highly recommend you watch to the end of the video where I explain this part, because this is like the neurological breakdown. Like, this is the process that you normally don't hear from other YouTubers or whoever NoFap influencers that you listen to. All right, coming up at number 1, extract data from slip-ups, all right? So what I mean by that is every time that you slip up, meaning that you relapse, but I don't like to call it a relapse because we treat relapses as like these bad things, right? In my opinion, a relapse is when you just fully give up, like when you just fully just go back to your old ways, right? So when you slip up, that's actually data, right? Because now when you're actually trying to fight those urges, your brain is telling you, right? You're getting raw data from your brain on what exactly makes you relapse. So for example, let's say in the middle of the day, right? You're on your phone, right? You're on TikTok. You came across like, I don't know, an OnlyFans model or something like that. And then, you know, let's say like you got an urge from that, and then that's when you went on Safari, right? So that means it's basically time to block out any type of OnlyFans models or half-naked girls on your phone, right? So if you know that a key urge for you is seeing half-naked girls on your phone, then you should probably start trying to remove that from your sight. Or maybe you do it just because you're bored, right? A lot of the times when you slip up, it kind of just happens, right? So after you slip up, you really have to think like, what sequence of events led up to that slip up, right? And then the next time you can reevaluate and you can act differently. Second, nobody talks about this enough, but beware of your peers, okay? Whew. All right, so when I was about like, 14, 15, right? So I'll put some images up in this video, but basically the people I was hanging around with, right? Obviously, they they thought I was trying to be better than them, right? Like they didn't really understand what I was trying to do, right? My friends at the time didn't really see the deeper purpose or the reasoning of what I was doing. And especially me starting at 14, you know, we're all pretty much kind of immature. And I also say that because I would be in group chats with them and they would send explicit content, right? Knowing damn well I was like kind of on my streak, but obviously, you know, they didn't give a damn about what streak I was on, right? They didn't really give a damn about me, you know? So I don't know if you'll be in my exact situation, but I'm just saying, you know, like the people who you hang around, right? For me, it was me being in that group chat and they would send explicit images or videos or like half naked girls, right? And then with me, it's like, okay, damn, like I have to hurry up and scroll out. I have to like, you know, go do some push-ups, like take my mind off of it. Cause I was taking this shit serious, bro. Around that time, I was like around like day 100, right? And I also say that because not everybody is going to understand why you're doing what you're doing, right? So people who don't understand, they're going to say like, oh yeah, it's like stupid. Like why even do that? Like what's the point, right? But what I learned is they're not supposed to get it, right? If you feel this deeper purpose, if you feel this need to do something, right? Especially if other people just don't get it, because that was me, right? So I always just, in my mind, it just kind of made sense to just stop watching pornography and fapping. Like I couldn't explain why, but something just told me to stop doing it. And also, obviously, if your friends are often lustful, you are who you hang around with, right? So you're gonna be a lustful lunatic just like them. Next, identity switch. Oh shit, my bad, y'all. I don't realize I spelled identity wrong. Hold on. All right, I'm being authentic with y'all, all right? So what I mean by that is, you know, obviously after 2,000 days of doing this, like I don't go around saying like, oh yeah, I'm on 2,000 days of NoFap. Like obviously I'll say that just for the context of the video, but I don't think of myself as somebody who's on 2,000 days. It's simply just who I am, right? So the the habit of just, you know, fapping or watching pornography, like it's just not me anymore. I don't view this as a challenge, right? So that's why I also say like the muscle memory is gone, because the muscle memory was tied to somebody that I used to be, right? When you have a new identity, you have new habits. So fapping is just not my identity anymore. It's just something that I'm just simply not doing anymore. So if you're serious about this, right? If you want to do this permanently, which I hope you are, I highly recommend. Like, I don't recommend just doing this for a week or two, right? You have to treat this as if you're becoming somebody new. All right, fourth one, no edging. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. I used to do that. I used to, on my little streak, right? I will go up on videos, right? I'll peek a bit, right? But I wouldn't exactly relapse, so, right? Now, if we're looking at the NOFAP book rules, right? It's not technically a relapse, but that does hinder the recalibration process. You have something called a ventral striatum in your brain. This is where like the reward circuitry is being placed at. Basically, I know you heard the term dopamine before, so just think of that area like the dopamine area. Right now in this NOFAP phase, your brain's baseline dopamine is trying to stabilize. So when you peak at pornography, right? Think of it like it spikes back up, right? And then you stop watching it, it spikes back down. But we want to keep it low. We want to have a steady, consistent baseline, all right? Think about it. If you were trying to quit drugs, you wouldn't just have the drugs like on your dresser or something like that, right? You will want it completely out of your sight. That's how you should treat this. Next is journaling. So this actually goes hand in hand with extract data from slip-ups. So what I used to do is like up until like day 30 or day 40 or day 50, right? Every single day, I would journal how I feel, how I'm handling the urges, what changed. I'll write down what I did today. Like, you want to write down, you want to be very specific on what you did that day, how you handled urges, how frequently they came up, because when you do that, right, you start to build a pattern, right? So you start to become very self-aware of yourself. Also, when you journal, you're engaging your prefrontal cortex more. Now, I'll explain that on this side, but basically, having a dominant prefrontal cortex is what's going to get you through this phase. Is what's going to get you to a high streak on NOFAP. But like I said, we're not chasing streaks. But yeah, start journaling, because I want you to see the changes that's going on inside your brain. All right, next, being honest with yourself. So that basically just means like you have to know yourself, right? So you have to know your own triggers. You have to know your own urges, right? So like I said before, if you're on Instagram and you know you got half-naked girls over there, unfollow them. Like, don't let yourself see that. If you're like just sitting down and you just think to yourself like, okay, I'll just watch a video. Like, no, like don't watch that video, because you know you're gonna reach the point of no return. So you know what will happen after that. So just be honest with yourself. Just say like, okay, I'm not gonna do that because I know my own temptations, right? That's basically the protocol I want you to install in your brain, right? I want you to know your own temptations. So, because a lot of you guys, okay, yeah. Let me say this. A lot of you guys think getting in the ring, like in the boxing ring with the urges and trying to fight the urges, that's how you do it. No. The best way to fight temptation is not stepping into the ring at all, right? The goal isn't always to get in the ring with temptation and trying to fight the temptation. No, sometimes the goal is to just not get in the ring at all with the temptation. If you know when you get bored and you get temptations, go do something else. Go make yourself productive. It's time to get in those new habits, because like I said, this is an identity switch. When you switch your identity, you switch your habits. All right, boom. Now on to the good stuff, all right? So you're going to probably hear some terms that you're not familiar with, but don't worry. I will break it down, all right? You're going to understand what I'm saying. So when you're on NOFAP, right, you want to use this protocol right here. Urge, pause, pivot, all right? So urge, obviously, you know, the initial urge to relapse, right? The initial urge to fap. When you get this urge, I want you to pause, right? So basically, I want you to recognize that you are in the heat of the moment right now, right? And when you pause, right, I need you to audit. So I need you to say out loud, I am having a urge right now. So after you say those things, I want you to pivot. Pivot just basically means, you know, go do something to take your mind off the urge. So I used to crank out like a set of push-ups, right? You could go for a walk. You could take a cold shower, right? Find a way to take your mind off the urge. Some people on my TikTok say they like to like scroll on TikTok to take their mind off the urge, but we don't want to distract ourselves with another high stimulation activity, right? I want you to do something that's low stim. Basically, you kind of just got to do something a little boring, right? But that's the point though, right? So we don't we don't want to replace a super heavy urge with a super high stim activity, right? The push-ups always worked for me, right? So you can find out what works for you. You can maybe read a book, right? You can journal. I used to always journal a lot too. I forgot to mention that. My go-to pivot styles was journaling, push-ups. Sometimes I'll just like walk around the house, right? Or sometimes I will go on Reddit and I will go to the NOFAP threads and I'll just read other people's success stories, right? So it kind of, I guess, motivates me, right? It helps me lock back in, right? I'm gonna explain to you why you should do this, right? So the initial urge to FAP comes from a brain region called the VTA. This stands for ventral tegmental area. This brain region works with your ventral striatum. It's this brain region that's actually creating the urge, okay? So here's why it's important to pause, recognize that you're in the heat of the moment, and say out loud that you're having an urge. So during this pause process, this wakes up your prefrontal cortex and your frontal lobe, okay? Now, the reason it's very important to wake up your prefrontal cortex is because having a dominant prefrontal cortex, like I said over here, having a dominant prefrontal cortex is actually what's going to help you get through NOFAP. Having a dominant prefrontal cortex doesn't exactly mean that you're smarter, right? Having a dominant prefrontal cortex basically just means you act a lot out of logic, right? So you don't let your emotions take over you. You could say you don't let like sexual urges or your emotions take over, right? So you think logically in the heat of the moment. That's basically having a dominant prefrontal cortex in this scenario. So now the key is, right? Your prefrontal cortex knows the logic of you wanting to stop. So the prefrontal cortex, which is basically like you, like your consciousness, you, like my prefrontal cortex is talking right now, right? Your prefrontal cortex knows I want to stop, right? But your brain region, the VTA, the ventral tegmental area, and I guess the nucleus accumbens too, which is the nucleus accumbens is in the ventral striatum, which is, like I said, is the dopamine area, right? These brain regions are still running the script of let's keep doing it. So basically what I'm trying to say is let's keep doing it. Like the reason you get urges still, even though you logically want to stop, is because you're running an old script right now, okay? I always tell people treat your brain like a program, right? So if we're treating our brain like a program, I'm going to use program-like terms. This is an old script that you're running right now. So basically the prefrontal cortex logic, I want to stop. This is a new script, all right? This is a new script that we're trying to ingrain in our brain. So every time that we pause, right, we're strengthening the prefrontal cortex, which means we're strengthening the new script of I want to stop. And eventually, as time goes on, this area of the brain is going to catch up with the new script, right? So this old script, let's keep doing it, right? So this old script is this right here, right? So the VTA, which creates the urge, this urge is an old script, okay? But every time you pause, right, you activate your prefrontal cortex. And because like I said, your prefrontal cortex has the new script of I want to stop. And obviously, during my 2000 days, eventually my VTA/NA, which like I said is like responsible for dopamine, eventually it caught up with the new script of I want to stop. So yeah, basically throughout your journey, it's just going to be a constant battle between the old script and the new script, okay? Your old script is trying to fight for its place, right? But like I said, we're trying to program the new script of I want to stop. And I'm telling you this because once you understand this, you understand, okay, this urge isn't even actually you then, right? Because you, right, your consciousness, you logically want to stop. So because you made the decision to stop, right? This urge that's coming, that's not you. That's an old identity, right? You can say that. That's an old identity speaking for you right now. So, because here's the thing, right? So, here, I'm going to put this right here just so you guys don't forget, right? So, this is dopamine area, right? So, for the sake of simplicity, I'll say dopamine area. Your dopamine area doesn't run off logic, okay? It runs off unconscious scripts. So because you've been fapping for, I don't know, like years now, right? The script of fapping has been encoded in there for a very, very long time. That's why it's even difficult in the first place to stop this. So obviously the key of achieving NOFAP, right, is of course repetition. Now I could have just came up here and said like, oh yeah, you just got to keep trying, right? But I'm telling you why exactly you have to keep trying, right? I'm telling you exactly why you might fail a few times. I'm telling you the neurological process of what's going on so you're not coming into this blind, right? All right, guys. That's pretty much the end of the video. Hope I didn't make this too complicated, but I feel like it was pretty simple, right? If you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments, right? If you have any video recommendations, you can also drop them in the comments. I hope this gave you a better understanding of yourself, right? I hope this made your journey a little bit easier, right? Because like I said, just when I first came into this, I was blind on what I was doing, right? But I just know, so I would want somebody to tell me this if I was me when I was, 14, 15, and I was only like on day, 10, day 20, right? It's AD, and I'm out.